Welcome to the Transform Sales Podcast, where forward-thinking business leaders come to share their experiences and ideas, learn from each other, and amplify their results together.
And Ryan, what's up, man? How are you?
What's going on, Amir? What's the weather in Colombia right now? You got to tell me.
The weather is this is the truth about Colombia. It's springtime all the time. It's called the internal spring. It's 65 degrees to 82 every day, all year round. But when it rains, it rains. And it's been raining lately. So it's like one of those places where like it's sunny and you're like in heaven, and then it's raining and you're like, it sucks. But I guess that's kind of everywhere it rains.
That's everywhere.
Yeah.
I was in New Zealand for like 6 months or so, and that's the weather there. It's just like perfect temperature, but you never know what you're gonna get. It could be snowing, it could be sunny. So I get it.
The reason why it's like that, because people don't realize it, it's because we're very close to the equator, right? Sometimes people are like, "Oh, it's like the Caribbean." I'm like, "No, dude, I don't know if you know a map, but we're much closer to the equator than the Caribbean." But it's 5,000 feet up in the valley, and then it's 7,000 feet up. So you have like, I don't know if you knew this, but every 1,000 feet in elevation is the equivalent in temperature of being 500 miles north of the equator. I'm doing my little science speech now.
Really?
So it's like this perfect blend. Yeah. And Bogota, which is the capital city, is like cold and rainy like New York City because it's 8,000 feet up. But that's a whole different story. But to those listening, I met Ryan recently. We met yesterday. We started chatting. We had a lot in common because we both ran agencies at some point. He runs an agency, so it was easy for us to just connect. And before we started this podcast, I spent the last 15 minutes selling him on Medellin and why he should move here. So
I already got my tickets.
That's gonna be a follow up on trying to get Ryan here, so we can build not only a marketplace community but actually get the agencies closer together. But that will be for a whole different episode. So, Ryan, a lot of the listeners that are checking in on this show, they are companies, leaders, sales leaders that have tried working with sales agencies before and they failed and they were the victim of losing $5,000, but their company's worth $20 million. We already heard that before, or they're about to outsource, or they hired an outsourced sales company, and then 2 years later, $1 million deal came in and said they tracked it, realized it was from the agency they fired, right? So what I want from this is really to talk about the mistakes people make so that when they're listening to every agency telling the same thing, potentially the buyers of sales services can be a little bit more prepared and they can come correct, and then they can know who you help. So that's kind of what we want to get to. But before I get into that, it'd be great to hear a quick introduction about who you are and how you got into this business for those listening. Because sometimes people listening too want to be SDR agency owners. Got some of those as well.
Yeah. And, kudos to anyone who wants to choose sales as a profession, especially to every industry out there. It's certainly a hard path, but it's one that I think is so fruitful because you just get to solve problems for essentially the marketplace. And that's what it feels like. Like we're a sample of the marketplace. So Superhuman Prospecting is the name of my company. So we do outsourced sales development, but specifically around cold calling and appointment setting is our specialty. So that's our main focus. We're all US based right now, and have about 50 team members for now.
And I got the pleasure of meeting your partner, Dennis, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Dennis is the man. I'm like, one thing that stood out to me about you guys, it's very easy to see the agencies that do good work versus the ones that might not. And and a lot of it just, I got the vibe when I talked to Dennis where it's like, you guys care about your customers, you guys care about your reputation, right? And that's super important. So I appreciate that. Let's start off right getting into it. What is the top mistake or mistakes that buyers make when searching for an agency? They land on your website, they book a meeting with you. Talk me through it.
Yeah, the biggest mistake
Don't be nice.
Thinking that there's no work to do for them.
Yeah,
I mean, that's probably the number one, because the thought is a lot of times with services, if I were to go to the auto shop, I'm going to go drop my car off and I'm going to be sitting in the lobby reading People magazine, right? And they're going to go fix a car, and when I get it, I'm going to be able to drive it. But with something like this, I mean, you drop your car off, you get out of it, and you get underneath the hood with us. And I think that's the biggest lesson. And
that's a great analogy, man. And that's the first time I heard that analogy, and it's a good one. So I hear you correctly, the biggest mistake is that they expect an all done for you service, and that is the case in some services, but business development is much more complex than that.
Yeah, because you're just part of a bigger process that they're a part of as well. So we need to be like interlocked. We're the experts in sales development, messaging, strategy, process, targeting. They're the ones that are bringing the product or service knowledge to the table. So we need to soak that in. We need to understand. We have a general sense of different markets, but every single product is different. And so for us to learn that, we need your expertise, but we also need your sales ability to close that deal. Once we pass it off to you, then it's got to go across the finish line. And that's a whole
Well, your ability to close the deal is
work.
everything, right? Everyone's looking for return on sales, and people are always asking this 15 meeting magic number, which you could talk about and shame all we want because it's really weird. But they really don't talk about the conversion rates. And if you're converting 15 meetings at 10%, or you get 8 that you're converting at 20%, which would you rather have, Ryan? It's not a trick question, but they never get there. So it's the feedback. So basically, how do you overcome that? And also, one thing to add by that, do you also think that not only are they making a mistake thinking that they can just hire a sales development company and go away, but do you find that sometimes they're not changing their messaging or their targeting fast enough based on data, and they're more likely to let something run out than fire an agency and say, oh, by the way, our targeting we gave you is off. We're not going to talk to CFOs anymore. We're going to talk to finance leaders. Is that part of it as well? Because for me, I know that there's a lot of parts in sales, but I feel like there's also decisions to be made that they're sometimes not likely, they won't make fast enough, right?
Well, yeah. Well, fortunately, part of our process is that we ask to meet with them once a week so that we can review the results weekly and start to get that process going. So that we try to instill like that into our process so that we're automatically part of theirs, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So we're constantly asking them, and getting feedback from them. But at some point, they might just drop off because they might think it's too much work, even after a month of asking those questions, right? Because they didn't realize how much work it was. Does that make sense? What is the right amount of time for somebody to commit? Let's not even talk contracts here, right? Let's just pretend that everything's month by month. What should people come in committed to, knowing that this is the right time for a program to develop? Like, I know it's a trick question because I know programs are different based on product market fit. Huh? Well, I love this question. Because here's what I say. I think that cold calling works. I say this. We have a belief statement at SHP. It's this. Cold calling works 100% of the time if 2 boxes are checked. 1, do people pick up the phone in your industry or your market? And number 2, do you have a product or service that people want or need? The final question, the only variable left is it going to take 1 month, 6 months, or more for it to work? And then does your budget allow for that?
Okay.
And if we can,
that's
what I say.
What's the average? Well, where's like this, that hill of I buy something and then I'm in this expectation but then I'm back. You know what I mean? Is there an average?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to look at this one. It's what's the average length someone stays with us, or what is it until they start getting ROI? I mean, that's such a loaded question that I'm actually just not going to answer it, because I'm
focusing more on, I'm focusing down on neither would they stay on you, neither do they get ROI. More, where do they start seeing the work where they're because obviously you have an ROI on it. If you have a 12-month sales cycle and you have $1 million sale, right? You need 1 sale, right? It's not going to be month 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
But there's a certain point where people are they're fearful, right? And there's a part where they're okay, I can see that everything's being done professionally, and that if I wasn't working with this agency, there's nothing I would do differently. That's what I mean, right? It's more they're doing all the right things that I would do anyways. Is that a certain point? Because I'll answer it. I feel like it's month 4. I feel like month 4 to 6 is where people start really, really, really seeing all of the changes in the text, the responses, the thing. So it definitely wasn't a loaded question, and I didn't want it to come out that way.
It's so crazy though for us because we have so many campaigns that start amazing right off the rip, like just appointments are just flowing in, but then like month 4 it starts to go down, and we're like, wait, what happened? Well, that specific market or target that they're going after maybe is like starting to squeeze everything out of that for the time being. So like switching and shifting to something else might be the question, and you might have a couple down months before you get that, that peak again. Does that make sense?
I'm like, I think that's a good point.
It's so everywhere.
Well, no, I think that's like the low hanging fruit thing, right? Like if you're going to go out
Yes.
and you're going to go pick a tree, it's like, and then you got to dig a little deeper, right?
Basically. That's right. Exactly. And sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's like, so
it's always like that. No, I think it's always like that, right? And I think anybody listening to the show should understand that it's like that, right? I think for me, what I want people listening to this is understand that your math is not going to change because an agency is going to be there, right? Like if you're going to tell an agency and you're going to be like, Ryan, we have a 9-month sales cycle, right? We need 2 deals to ROI. Like, don't change and all of a sudden expect a 6-month or a deal to close in 6 months. Because I feel like sometimes they do that, right? It's almost as if they're like changing how they feel based on an agency versus a W-2 in a way.
Yeah, there's definitely a different pressure on, and I understand there's like a connection. Like they're able to give more grace if they feel like they're connected and they're getting more out of it, so they're able to like extend that. But sometimes it's just like the transaction of that kind of relationship, they just put more pressure on for some reason, and it's because you guys are the experts. Isn't what you guys do for a living? Isn't this
Have you ever had somebody be like, hey Ryan, you guys are awesome, I love what you're doing, you're charging X per month, but you guys are so great, I'm going to give you a 10% extra bonus? Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of people giving us gift cards to send to our SDRs. We have people that, but they haven't wrote me any extra checks.
I want them to. I say that because, we live in a world where like if you hire talent that you love and it's awesome, you might give them an extra bonus. But when you hear an agency, they still try to negotiate, which is
that's so
interesting.
true. That's very true. I'm going to start asking.
You know what I mean? That's what I want. And I
bonus.
Yeah, you charge X. I want to pay you more, and I want special treatment, right? Like I think that is where buyers should get at. If they should act the same way. If you hire talent, that's great, and you feel convinced.
There's still people.
The same thing with the agency.
Still people, just a different arrangement.
I have a good feeling that you guys are very good at communicating, and at when you called out that pain point, to me, it's like we're also fucking really good at making sure that we get these communications and getting in. I'm like transparently, like we typically hear people from science, this and that coming to us, say, I have not heard anything besides good things from you guys, and it's no wonder. But are there other mistakes that people are making before they're even getting into we hired you? Is it like, what mistakes are they making in the buying process? Because, you mentioned it, but that's also the ongoing mistake, right? It's like thinking that we don't need it, but it's the ongoing performance that they're lacking. But what about the searching, finding, and selecting the agency? What mistakes are they making there?
So I'm not sure. Mistakes like before they jump on with us, choose us, like, hey, I'm just going to.
Like they're coming at you, and then they're coming at you, they're being like, oh, what's your price? Like the first thing they ask you is their price, or like they're like looking for a guarantee. What buying behavior that you see that you're just kind of like, you're not like, oh, I'm not going to close this one. You're like, man, these guys, I want these guys to get the best results, and the way they're buying, they're just setting it up to be one of these.
I'll go with that. I'll go with that point about pay by performance, because I think what that does is it makes the process all about the result, which is fine, but it's a bit of an antiquated thought. Because first of all, you don't pay anyone else like that, but also then what kind of relationship are we really having? Well, it's back to that transactional thing again, where it's just like, well, what is a result anyway? Here's a list, call it, or here's what I want you guys to do, go do it. And then, give me these appointments. Well, if there's no like relationship and process and integration into the teams, then, we're not going to be able to get those results that you want. And we're just going to get people that are on a call that, agreed to be there. And I think that's
I'll give you like 10 more to that.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's also going against the way they buy, because if you do that approach, if somebody, the right person with the right problem is called at the right time, and they go to your website and they download a form and they don't buy for 8 months, and then 9 months to come later, whose credit is it, right? Like, if Superhuman did all the work, you're just paying the performance. You're really going against logic, because the people hiring you don't buy like that. The people hiring you know that they go to a website first. They behave like an inbound, right? Like for me, I believe inbound means I know I got a problem, right? Like, I got to go here. Outbound is kind of informing you that you might have a problem to get into an inbound funnel. And people have a choice to say, I got this problem now, I'm going to become a sales qualified lead, or, oh, I didn't know I have the problem, let me learn, right? But like, I had a company call me that said, we fired the agency we used to work with. And I said, why? And they, well, what? We didn't have an ROI. And I go, well, why are you calling me now? And they're like, well, we just got $1 million deal, and we looked up the record, and it was an outsourced agency that called them 3 years ago. So it's like, well, that's how people buy.
Yeah.
So how can you not measure that, right? And then, like, if you think about it,
exactly,
Google, Facebook, Twitter, what are they showing you when you do ads? Impressions, clicks, engagements. So it's like, they're getting money on that, right? But all of a sudden, an SDR agency is like, SQL closed, yes or no. And it's, in my opinion, hurting the company and the agency, because the company, when you fire an agency, your pipeline goes down. You have no visibility into clicks and all that stuff, right? It's happening. Let me tell you, you email people, you call people, they go to your website, right? And then they wait 6 months to hire someone back. So they don't hit their goals. They lose their best account executives, because now he's going to go to Salesforce for a cushy job. And the agency who worked their butt off is no longer with you, right? So it's like, for me, I'm adamant about this. Like, you can be nice about it. Like, I'll tell you right, buyers, you're messing up, because you know how people buy, and it doesn't change when you hire an agency.
Yeah.
You know?
And they, a lot of times too, there's a misconception that the leads that we generate are like inbounds, because that's a lot of times what they're used to. Well, we have a good inbound flow, and then so we're just going to get more of those, but it's really outbound, which is completely different, and our job, we say, is to, it's to help identify a problem, but many times we're just helping them see that this type of service that we're calling for, or whatever, is even out there. And many times we have to instill belief in them that this is something that could help, and that kind of give coverage to a lot of different wants and needs. So like, it's hard to say like, hey, like, do you have a need for XYZ product? A lot of people are just going to say no right off the riff anyway. So our job is to like educate and inform, which can take longer than someone who already had an issue, already went to your website, and is ready, like has their wallet, their credit card ready to buy, and you're just order taking, which is completely different than this. And that's why, to your point, like 3 years down the road, you get $1 million deal, and then they want to find another agency because they thought the agency didn't do good enough 3 years ago, when really that's just sometimes the cycle. Or maybe your salesperson didn't do well enough to chase it down. So it's a commitment.
Most likely he didn't do well enough to chase down. You could be nice. I won't be. Most likely he touched it once or twice. Yeah. How many times have you send over leads and have an account executive follow up with it 2 times?
Oh, or even just show up to the meeting. Many times.
80% of the time, right?
Or like, no one's on the Zoom meeting. Even for my inbounds, this is the craziest thing. Even for the inbound calls I take for folks who are interested in Superhuman, if they're not there within 1 minute, like literally 1 minute, email, text, call, email, and then text again to make sure they're there. And it's always oh shoot, it's texting me. Oh shoot, I missed it. I'll be on in 5. Or like, oh man, I forgot about that. Even on the inbound. So, imagine that on outbound, and people are just waiting on the Zoom meeting. Oh, it looks like they didn't show up.
Yeah, they're not the same. They're not the same. I heard one time a company that hired came to the marketplace, got placed with an agency. They said to me, hey, Amir, this agency is producing 15 meetings a month, but our internal team is producing 30. So we're going to fire that team. And I asked them, I go, tell me more about those 30 meetings the internal team is doing. I peeled back the onion, and guess what? They were all companies that filled out the request demo form. So they're measuring their internal team calling back inbound leads, request demo, book 30, compared to calling strangers in 10, and they're comparing apples to apples.
So awful.
No, but this stuff happens all the time.
That is the whole problem with sales. Like, I feel like people shouldn't even be qualified to measure. Like, they shouldn't even be. Yeah,
they should pass the test.
They should pass the test. Even listening to, like, this goes to all sorts of things. Like, we're thinking even having folks potentially be qualified to listen to recordings.
Yeah.
You know, like, who says?
But which ones?
Like,
what recordings? Meetings
like
or
recordings that our SDRs
calls?
set. Because, like, we'll send someone like, this is an amazing call. They followed the process. The person's interested, and then they get the call, and they're like, I don't care if the person was interested or not. I don't like the way that they read the script. They didn't say it exactly the way that we would do it. Like, if we were, and I'm just like, you know, I'm like, well, then I'm not going to show you these anymore, because you have an interested customer who asked for a meeting. If you didn't hear, literally asked for a meeting.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I had an agency that was hired to sell a $100,000 product, and they wanted 10 meetings a month, one or they're fired. So the agency owner, it was actually Leading was the agency, and he worked his butt off. He ended up making meetings that were qualified in his friends and family network, qualified. The company was so fucking pissed. They were like, he knows these people, doesn't count. 2 of the deals converted. And I looked at the company and I'm like, let me get this straight. You want 10 meetings, he's making 10 meetings, but because he called people that were qualified that he knows, they don't count. I go, that's exactly why you hire people. You hire people for their network. You literally do. So obviously you hire an agency and you get their network and it doesn't call, but you hire an employee because they know John and Ike and Tim. And guess the worst part? One of the companies that he sold the product to, with the $100,000 product, they fired the agency that threw the marketplace, and they then hired that agency because they bought the product. And that was the rudest thing I've ever seen.
Oh, it's brutal.
I was
it's
like,
brutal out there.
Yeah. Brutal. Yeah. You know what they're going to do to the other agency? They're the same thing. So it's like, I look at these companies and I'm like, man, you have an ROI, you're getting all these things. And to me, it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's very adversarial. I feel like, I read this book. I can read it over and over again. Same site selling. And I'm reading the book. My business changed. I changed from a service company to a marketplace, right? And all it talks about is how buyers and sellers can beat themselves up out of the results they want, right? And it's frustrating to me seeing it because it's a lot of money, right? It's a lot of money wasted. I've never in my life met an agency owner that was high-fiving a win. I know that everybody here is about winning and success, you know what I mean? So for me, it's interesting because I'm almost hoping that the SDR function becomes more marketing, which I think it is, and just completely works with agencies, because people really should be focusing on junior account executives and getting your conversion rate from 10 to 30%.
Yeah.
They're trying to do everything.
Yeah,
right?
It's a waste, because they have to like go from different task, and the way their day is designed, which just completely cuts it off from what they could be focusing on, and on.
Oh, they should be focusing on their product. And the best part is the objection, I don't outsource. You ever heard of that objection, I don't outsource?
I have. Yeah.
You ever heard it from a software as a service company?
That's funny. No, I have. I don't know
SaaS
specifically.
Company?
I don't know if I remember who specifically.
I've heard it from SaaS companies, and they don't even realize that software as a service is outsourcing. It is, don't build your software in-house, pay it as a service. And then I have leaders of SaaS companies for years. We don't outsource. And I'm like, well, let me get this straight. You're telling companies to outsource their software to you, but you don't outsource? Right. So you fundamentally don't buy how you sell. Right? They don't even understand. They don't realize that software as a service is outsourcing. When think about it, it's like, don't build. And that what is an outsourced agency? You have a team of 10 people, right? When people hire, call it one SDR or 2 SDRs, they're supported by a management team, by a writer, by a tech expert, right? It's the same pitch as buying software as a service. It's like, why are you going to buy servers? We got all these people. It's the same business. They don't even know it. I got to write a blog article about this. I got to educate people. I will. Every time I talk on a podcast, I think of another blog article. It's
crazy ideas
that I have to write.
It's the education. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And folks come in with such a limited education of what sales development is, what sales is, and I think that's great that you're out here doing this, because this is going to help a lot of buying companies. Really.
I'll be transparent. I'm not even saying to be nice, but being changing the shoes from a service owner to a marketplace owner and talking to people that I know give a fuck, that I know care, and like knowing now that why do you think I'm writing blog articles, man? I was so late. Like, it's like motivating for me because I realized that, like, you're basically helping companies make millions, save millions, improve their products, right? And then I'm helping agencies grow and go to sleep. So it's like, for me, it's super motivating. And it's ironic because, a guy who used to have 265 SDRs, now I'm your SDR. Now you got me, Ryan, as your SDR. And flipping into that, now that I am your SDR, tell me who your best customers are. And by best customers, I don't mean your highest gross profit margins, the people you make the most money on. I'm talking about the people who work with you forever because they like you. What do they look like? Is it service? Is it software? And then tell me more about them. And especially if they're listening, I want them to hear you.
I mean, it's a variety. It's really about the person and their understanding of our value in their business. And I realize, like, the more that people understand our value, the more that they treat us like a partner, and they really treat us with patience, or with that relationship, that they trust our process. And when they trust that, then we can be more and more transparent and more giving to them because they see the value. And that's the kind of thing that, where we see amongst these different products, because one of them right now is a software that is for school districts. Another one is a home service warranty company. I mean, you couldn't have, like, those are just two off the top of my head that are completely opposite of one another, and
well, your answer aligns with the mistake people make, right? So your answer aligns with the mistakes because they don't communicate, they don't give the touch points, right? They don't know what's involved, and then your best buyer is somebody who knows what's involved.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So
because they trust it's in our,
which is awesome.
Because they trust that we know what we're talking about, and I that's what I mean. It's just, I already mentioned it with the recordings. Like, we're not going to give you more recordings if you don't understand how to listen to one. So I'm going to be sure everything.
And it's also at the same time that people that know that failure is success, right? Like, if you send the right message to the right person at the right time and they're just not into it, maybe the offer is not that valuable. Maybe it's time to say, instead of selling bananas, we got to sell apples, right? Yeah. Or maybe we thought they want apples, but they don't. They want bananas. I'm going to make you pick, and I know you're not going to like this. Software or services? You can only pick one.
Software or services? Just for clients, or just anything? What do you just answer it?
As a buyer, the buyer comes to you, I am a service company, or the buyer comes to you, I'm a software company. You only pick one. You can't leave. You can't. There's no technical error. You can't get out of this one, Ryan.
I'm gonna say software. Yeah.
I'm gonna say it should be software, but I know why you're hesitating, and you're hesitating because you truly want to help everybody.
Oh yeah, but
that's the bottom line. Bottom line.
I'll tell you why, though. Software is because some of our people don't realize too. Some of their best, the things that sell the best on calls and outsourced sales are ones that are products or services that are unique to the market or rare to the market. Because when we actually go out to the marketplace and we talk about this thing that can help, they
got an offer that resonates
because it's something fresh.
They got an offer that resonates.
That's exactly the reason why. And a lot of services, it's like, oh, we sell insurance to people who have insurance, and that it's a commodity. And it's like, listen, I'm good at selling, but you realize, like, Grant Cardone would have a hard time selling this, So
100%.
Sorry,
100%. People never talk about. They never talk about that. And also, another reason why it's hard, because sometimes services have a lot of high average contract values. They have 100K, so that sometimes service companies, 1 or 2 deals is good, right? And they're happy, but they can't really scale. But software companies are great, but let's talk deeper. A software company, if you could pick, startup, Series A, Series B, publicly traded company.
Probably the probably the Series A, like somewhere after like minimum viable product, and they have some kind of investment.
Makes sense. Makes sense to me. Your best channel: phone, email, LinkedIn. Sure. Love that. Anybody listening to this, Super Virtuals hits the phones. They hit the phones. They call because prospecting. That is probably
Superhuman Prospecting. Oh, it's all good. See, look, we got these dudes right here.
It's okay.
Superhuman Prospecting right there.
can't see it. It needs to be bigger. You didn't send me a shirt. If you sent me a shirt right now, I'll wear it. But the bottom line is, you guys do call, which is awesome. Do you guys ever find that you're switching up? You're emailing people and being like, hey, just call, if you message, let me know what you think. You're kind of doing omnichannel touches. Like what's really working with the calls? Are you using any kind of technology that's giving you guys a head start?
So,
what do you guys got going on?
With the calls? There's so much data on it now, but what we do is, we have these packages that they can kind of bolt on together, because we still do email and LinkedIn like that. But what we'll do is we'll adjust as we go. We'll kind of put our first foot forward, measure to see how that's going, and then based upon those results, we'll make adjustments. Hey, like it looks like people don't love picking up the phone in this industry. Maybe we can swing around with email, and we can kind of adjust the levels a little bit. But we typically start off with a package that has calls in it as kind of like our barometer reading. It's like, okay, what's like the general weather out there, and then we can go and swing around from other angles. That's typically what we do. So
it all makes sense to me. What's next for What's next for you guys?
The big thing is we have our own sales scripting methodology. It's a cold call methodology called H2H Sales Scripts. And so we are publishing a book here soon on a cold call methodology. And I'm just saying, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I know there's PDFs, I know there's some out there, but I don't know if there is a book on cold calling that is a complete methodology. And so that pure. So that's our next move. And we're training all of our team on it. And so that way there's one way that we go about calls. And that's our big next step there.
I'm going to spread your book around the world, man. That's my job. I'm going to take a book and I'm going to spread it around the world. I'm going to send it to people. It's fun. It's back to the good old days. Ryan, this has been a pleasure. I like I said before, like we just got the chance to personally connect, but I've heard nothing besides good things. And and to be transparent, it's very rare to hear nothing besides good things from a sales agency, because it's a difficult industry, right? I love the fact that you guys are phone heavy. I like the fact that you guys really want to build long-term relationships. Like for me, it's like if you're listening to this, your Series A company, you want a company that's going to be part of your company, act as part of your company. You guys are a good fit for that, right? Like it was the first problem you said, and it was your best client. And that's good enough, because out of all the buyers out there, you stack them all up, there's a percentage of them that are software, percentage of them Series A, and a percentage of them that want that, right? And they want that, and they need to find you. And that's it. And then to my final question, where can they find you? They want to reach you. Where was it? Website, TikTok?
All of those, man. We just hired a TikTok person, so I'm trying to figure that out. So you can find us.
I need to hire a TikTok person too.
It's crazy out there. It's crazy. I don't know how it all works, but it does somehow. So yeah, I mean, just superhumanprospecting.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. We're on them all. So appreciate you having me.